All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're covering the devastating landslides that recently hit Nagaland's Mon district. We're going to unpack the structural failures behind the headlines and figure out exactly how a heavy weather event spiraled into a full-blown infrastructural crisis. If you've been following the news out of the Northeast, you know the situation on the ground has been incredibly tense. So let's get straight to the facts.
9. It's a stark, heartbreaking number. 9 lives were lost in a single day when massive flash floods and landslides wiped out communities in Mon Town, hitting areas like the defense colony in Walagwal ward particularly hard. The suddenness and the sheer brute force of these landslides, they caught residents completely off guard, basically turning a heavy monsoon morning into an absolute tragedy.
Right after visiting the affected zones, Chief Minister Dr. Nyaifu Rio hit the nail on the head. He immediately tied this local disaster to global climate change and stressed the absolute urgency for better construction regulations. He pointed directly to the necessity of strictly adhering to building bylaws, especially when you're building on these highly vulnerable steep slopes. It's a very clear signal. The old way of building, it's just not going to hold up against our new climate realities.
So, here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start with the Monastrict district landslides, move on to casualties and property damage, unpack the Cloudburst debate, look at the infrastructure and climate factors, and then finish up with rescue and relief operations, plus the current advisories.
Section 1. The Mon District Landslides.
You know, despite severe weather warnings, with the India Meteorological Department actually issuing orange and red alerts starting on July 18th, an upper cyclonic circulation just dumped an overwhelming amount of rain on the region. By 6:30 a.m. the very next day, catastrophic landslides were already triggering across multiple locations, severely hitting the defense colony and Shantam ward. The structural failure was literal and immediate. We're talking over a dozen homes completely washed away. But crucially, the landslides didn't just destroy homes, they totally severed key lifeline roads. Routes connecting Naganimora, Sonari, Wakching, and Aboi were completely blocked. Mon Town was effectively cut off from the rest of the region, instantly turning a localized disaster into a massive logistical nightmare for emergency responders and supply chains alike.
Section 2. Casualties and property damage.
Beyond the tragic loss of life in Mon district, the sheer scale of destruction across the broader state reveals a massive multi-district crisis. Over 7,460 people. That staggering number represents the total individuals affected across the state by these rain-induced disasters. To put that into perspective, while Mon district saw the tragic fatalities, Shamator district alone saw nearly 7,000 displaced residents across 6 villages. Twinsong and Junabodo districts were also hit incredibly hard. The geographic spread of this thing is just immense.
The disaster also dealt a brutal economic blow to the region's agricultural sector. When flash floods sweep through, they don't just take houses, right? They wipe out vital community livestock assets overnight. Official estimates show 83 animals lost, including 53 pigs, 15 mithens, and 13 cattle. For agrarian communities, that represents an absolutely devastating loss of livelihood and capital.
And then there's the physical infrastructure toll. Preliminary assessments show 64 houses damaged across 93 villages in 10 different districts. Furthermore, 58 roads were breached in just a matter of days, completely halting vital supply chains. For developers, entrepreneurs, and civic planners tracking regional stability, these localized collapses expose some glaring vulnerabilities. Honestly, even before this massive downpour, 18 vital embankments had already breached earlier in the month, basically setting the stage for this massive system failure.
Section 3. The Cloudburst debate. So why did this happen? Let's unpack the ongoing controversy over exactly what kind of weather event we're even dealing with here. Was it a freak act of nature or something else? There's a fascinating discrepancy happening right now. Initial reports from local disaster authorities blamed a sudden cloudburst, suggesting freak weather overwhelmed the drainage systems instantly. But the India Meteorological Department completely debunked that classification, insisting that rainfall alone doesn't explain the severity of the flood damage.
To really understand this debate, we have to look at the strict scientific definition. A cloudburst is specifically defined as an area receiving at least 100 millimeters of rainfall within a single hour. Now, Mon District's Aboi station did record 137 millimeters of rain, which was the highest of the season, but that was spread over a whole day, not a single hour. As an IMD scientist pointed out, those kinds of rainfall figures are actually not that uncommon in the Northeast. This means we have to look way beyond just the weather for the root cause of this tragedy.
Section 4. Infrastructure and climate factors.
If it wasn't a freak cloudburst, what really caused this disaster to reach such deadly proportions? Well, the crucial issue really comes down to systemic infrastructure gaps. Experts are pointing out that unscientific road elevation and replacing large bridges with small, inadequate culverts literally choke the natural water flow. When you combine that with poorly maintained embankments that are already heavily eroded, you essentially turn heavy rain into lethal flash floods. The water simply has nowhere else to go but straight through towns and villages.
On the environmental side, the degradation of the river floodplain ecosystem is playing a massive role here. Take the Peniding Bird Sanctuary in neighboring Sivasaga as a prime example of wetland degradation. Back in 2001, there were 18.9 square kilometers of natural wetland available to absorb excess floodwaters. Fast forward to 2021, and that area has shrunk to just 5.9 square kilometers. That is a shocking drop, and it proves that environmental degradation has entirely stripped the land of its natural ability to act like a sponge.
Section 5. Rescue and Relief Operations.
Let's transition into the response. The response pipeline was activated swiftly under incredibly tough conditions. First up, there was an immediate evacuation mandate for anyone on steep slopes and riverbanks. Second, the rapid deployment of the State Disaster Response Force, Nagaland Police, and the 42 Assam Rifles, working alongside civil societies, was absolutely critical. These teams were working tirelessly in the mud and rain. And third, to keep relief moving, the Chief Minister provided a 10 lakh rupee emergency fund straight to the Cognac Union for immediate on-the-ground use.
To get crucial capital directly to the hardest-hit families, the state government immediately laid out specific financial relief measures, an ex gratia assistance of 4 lakh rupees for the next of kin of each deceased person and 74,000 rupees for the injured. This immediate financial injection was absolutely vital for supporting families during those critical first few days.
Section 6. Advisories and Current Situation.
Look, the crisis is far from over. There's still an active search and rescue operation underway for 4 individuals who sadly remain missing. Authorities have mandated evacuations from all vulnerable risk zones. They're also issuing strict orders to rely only on official NSDMA information to prevent panic, and they are firmly advising against any non-essential travel through landslide-prone commercial routes until slope stability can actually be guaranteed.
This whole tragedy forces us all to step back and ask a really tough question. If extreme weather is the new normal, shouldn't our development regulations drastically change to match it? We just can't rely on inadequate culverts, shrinking wetlands, and outdated building codes when the climate is literally proving it can wash away entire communities in a matter of hours. The data is super clear. The infrastructure desperately needs to catch up.
If you found this update helpful, please hit the like button and share this video with fellow entrepreneurs. For more deep dives into the latest environmental regulations and industrial news, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. See you in the next one.